right. Hey there. What's going on, everybody? It is post-election eve. We have a winner. The Orange Man. He won. So I've got my Orange Man hat here. Yeah, if you guys are paying attention, everything other than gold went up as he came out there at 100 plus on his delegate or his votes there. So, man, oh man, good to see y'all here. I've got the guys here with me as well. About to bring them up here in a minute. We're going to talk about Gensler. We're going to talk about, institutional adoption, whatnot, regulation, what it looks like. Basically, this is where we say we told you so. So now that I've said that, I think one of these guys owes me like $100 for actually saying that out here. We were talking about that before, but anyway, hopefully you guys are doing all right. I'm going to bring up the guys here so I don't get myself in any more trouble. What's going on, Tillman? Andrew, good to see you guys.
Hey.
So Trump wins last night. Every damn thing goes up. I was watching the charts. Everything went other than gold. But, I was already looking for gold to take that pullback anyway, so that was good. But, man, Bitcoin new all-time high. The S&P futures overnight, just a huge move up, new all-time high. If you're paying attention, you got Elon as part of that group there. So, a Trump win means you should have been looking for Tesla. Tesla pops up today, another gap up, coins up. The miners are looking amazing. I mean, holy crap. This is the kind of day you like to see. It's like just throw a dart and go long and you're good to go, right?
Here's a little alpha. I'm closely watching the processed food companies here in the short term. If our friend Kennedy gets in power, here's the thing. What's exciting about today is I think the most genius move of the entire election by far on Trump's behalf was getting Elon as his quote running mate without being his running mate. I mean, he might as well have been the VP candidate, for God's sakes. He's at Mar-a-Lago sitting there watching it with them. He's he's screaming MAGA, dark MAGA. I mean, so when you have a guy that everyone associates with knowing good business, and business is the one thing everybody's voting on, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. I mean, I think some of the best bets that people could have made were early last night. I mean, it was still like 60-40 in terms of the spread on who was going to win. And then shortly thereafter, within an hour and a half, it was 90, 10.
It just jumped.
Yeah.
Well, we saw
new day.
Well, I know we saw, of course, leading up in as you guys have been in the markets a while, like I have, and, no surprise leading up into a week or two into it, we had pullbacks and volatility. As we got closer to election, more and more uncertainty. The markets hate uncertainty. And now we have certainty, right? So now he wins. He's there. Historically speaking, the post-election year, markets tend to rally. Some better than others, okay? I got a comment here that says, but it did take a rocket scientist, Elon. That's a good comment. But yeah, so
I'm glad we don't have dumb listeners. They're probably all smarter than us. We should probably have them on here a couple of times.
That's right. Bring them on here. But yeah, so I mean, just from the perspective of the election finally being known now, who's winning, regardless of who won, the expectation was that the market would go up anyway. I think people feel a lot better about them going up, especially Bitcoin and crypto with Trump in there now. Not obviously the fact that JD Vance has over $500,000 in Bitcoin, and Tesla has Bitcoin, and Elon's got some Bitcoin, and all those things kind of really, I think, help it a lot if you're kind of stuck in this Twitter sphere of Bitcoin life, right? But go ahead.
I'll warn everyone. I think there is a tendency for the Bitcoin community to think we are the star of the show, of every show. There are bigger priorities than Bitcoin to Trump. He's going to have to drain the swamp and do all the stuff he's promised to do. But I will tell you this, he values the people who value him. And the fact that he spoke at the conference this year, and the fact that it went so well, and the fact that he won, there's no doubtably a lot of goodwill towards the Bitcoin community that's stored up there. And there's no doubt that those, proverbial chips will be cashed in at some point. And I think the way they're cashed in is a way that allows him to legitimately say he's doing what's best for the country, and at the same time accomplish what we want, which is we want pro-crypto regulation. Nobody's not for regulation, but we're for people who understand the industry to be at the helm, and not people who are, malicious in their intent, right? And so if you have Trump being able to appoint guys like the Winklevoss twins, who have been in the game since the beginning and know more, you can't catch them in accumulated knowledge. They are the AI of the human beings in our industry. And he already has pulled them in, and I'm sure he'll pull them in a greater capacity. And I'm sure we're going to hear some very exciting things as it pertains to, I don't know if y'all saw Michael Saylor's post yesterday, but right when it looked like Trump was going to win, his post was, we need a Bitcoin strategic national reserve fund. And, I think if enough people keep beating that drum, and considering the fact that Larry Fink will probably beat that drum in his ear, my bet would be on it that it happens.
I've been saying for months that there's no meaningful downside narrative to Bitcoin, and I've been right. And this election result, and I talked yesterday on Scott Melker's show that there were 4 potential outcomes, right? There was a potential Harris landslide. There's a potential Trump landslide. And I thought both of those were out of the, proverbial bell curve and unlikely to happen. And in the middle were, Trump wins the Electoral College but loses the popular vote. Same thing for Harris. Well, we had literally the best possible election outcome for Bitcoin and crypto, in that Trump effectively is going to win every single swing state, all of them, all 8 of them or whatever, all went to Trump. He's going to win the popular vote, win the Electoral College, something like 310 plus to whatever the other number is. And so not only do we not have any downside narratives, we have a turbocharged version of an upside narrative now. We can talk about in a realistic way a Bitcoin, a national Bitcoin reserve. We can talk about the fact that David Bailey is at Mar-a-Lago as an important guest yesterday at the the acceptance party.
Yeah.
The Winklevoss twins in 2013, were the first to try and get a Bitcoin ETF done. They have literally forgotten more about Bitcoin and crypto than 99% of the people that we know even know. So my guess is that somewhere along the line in the next 3 to 6 months, there's going to be a commission that gets put together associated with meaningful regulation that is very, very friendly to the industry, but puts guardrails that keeps things fairly kosher, right? Yeah. Who in the world do you think is going to be on that committee and lead that committee?
Well, it's so natural if we do that. We have another thing that allows us to inflate the dollar and provide wealth to the world and grow our economy and catch up with it. Because again, we've dodged the leadership position long enough in the US on the crypto front. I mean, we have made it so difficult for the pioneers of this industry to even exist in this country over the last 15 years. It's jaw-dropping that we've actually made it through. And I think that's a testimony to the technology itself and how strong it is and how resilient it is against attack.
Another part of the turbocharged version of the growth of the ecosystem, you're going to have a Senate that's 53 or 54 Republican, so a significant majority there. You're going to have a House that's probably still Republican. So you've got all 3 branches. And even if you have to, even if there's something that's quote unquote tough to get through, you can push it through via reconciliation, right?
Yeah.
So in these next 2 years, it's all gas, no brakes, right? So it's just a question.
Hook 'em horns. That's sarcasm. That's all guys.
So
Right.
it's just a question of what are the priorities and where does Bitcoin fall into those priorities. And by the way,
Andrew, but those priorities, if I am picking up Trump vibe by bringing Elon into the equation like he has, he's already telling us his playbook. The priority is delegation. He's going to delegate to the non-swamp members every single thing that they are experts in and trust them to make the decisions need to be made. And baby, I'm telling you, we could see radical change across the board in every agency government-wise if Elon is put in charge of what I think he's going to get put in charge of, which is government efficiency. And just think about that alone. If we only got that out of the next 4 years, we'd be in a different world 4 years.
Eons ahead.
Eons ahead. And how much faith I could feel the energy this morning in terms of economic prosperity and the results of it make everybody happy. And I have a strong suspicion that America has a bright 4 years ahead of us as it relates to, what GDP we can drop to the bottom line and what we can do in the crypto space and in the AI space with Trump being in office.
Well, and juxtapose that type of growth. So say we get to a 3 to 4% annualized GDP growth. That's massive. Those are massive numbers, right? And then, but we also have, again, another turbo booster to bring it back to Elon and his rockets. You also have the scale and growth of government not only shifting down and slowing down, but going backwards. So you now have a sort of an anvil around the neck of economic growth being loosened and being removed in terms of the government. You've got Ron Paul in the room last night, Elon Musk, DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency.
How apropos is that?
I mean, these are all things that are not just interesting conversational pieces now. When you have the presidency, the Senate, and the House, you're putting yourself in a position to, in the next 2 years at minimum, do some pretty remarkable things. And so, again, I go back to things like price action, right? When you go to an all-time high, and I've said this again for months and months and months, and I've been right, that Bitcoin's price action has materially changed. So we go to the high yesterday, a new all-time high, and where are we at? We're 0.5%, 1% right now below that new all-time high. We're at 74.7. So
I've said it in a different way, but it's the exact same result. We switched market makers. We went from the crypto spot market and the crypto market being the market makers and the price, the folks responsible for price action, to the most sophisticated financial folks on the earth.
Well,
and that spread is tightened and the liquidity is there on both levels. I'm shocked to see how many times since Fink's been involved, Bitcoin will drop 5,000 and immediately be bought up 3,000. You see what I'm saying? Like like yesterday, it went down to 67 and then boom, it was at 73 immediately after that.
It's some narratives that used to be ubiquitous across Bitcoin and crypto, like overnight Asian price action, right? Because Binance ruled the world. That no one has uttered that phrase in a year. It's gone. It no longer
market makers
exists.
Changed.
So you have price action at the high. We're looking at a drop of maybe 2.5%, and then now we're pushing higher again. It is like I've said, there's no downside narrative. We now have turbo boosters to the upside. And sure, there are going to be some ups and downs, and there's going to be some peaks and valleys in the price of Bitcoin. But in terms of the building of the ecosystem and the long-term viability of higher for longer, we're there, man. We're there.
And if, you know, okay, so the first thing we have to acknowledge is, you know, presidential candidates will pretty much say whatever they can say to get elected. So, you know, we still have to see him come and do these things. But here's the thing. If he does just a fraction of what he's saying when it comes to crypto and Bitcoin, the fact that we got, you know, as Tillman's been putting it, that Bitcoin got, you know, welcome to the big boys table this year with the ETFs, and now the option on the ETF's been approved and all that. I mean, this is like the perfect storm to really set up the proper regulations that will get us as we go on.
I would argue that we are beyond that. I don't think that listen, if he just stops putting the roadblocks in front of the industry, we'll see a massive wave up. You'll think about what, again, the caustic relationship that right now the bank or the government has with the whole crypto industry, but yet the banking industry loves the crypto industry. And so it's no different than anything. Like, we've got to take crypto across all of the branches of government. And right now we're bridging into the executive branch. And when you bridge into the executive branch, the next is the judicial branch. And that's when regulation will be an absolute concrete. The law, because it will be determined. And so we'll you know, there's like Andrew said, I don't see any negative narratives that are creeping up. I mean,
well, here to Chris's point about, you know, politicians will say anything. That's why the elites hate Trump, because he's not that guy. When he says stuff, even some of the wildest stuff, he actually means it, and it freaks them out. It freaks them out, right? So that's the reason why the entire machine, right? You know, Republicans against Trump, you know, the never Trumpers who are, you know, tossed into the dustbin for forever, you know, spent hundreds of millions of dollars to try and keep him away from the controls again, you know, of our government. Democrat elites, just the entire apparatus that is the elites and Washington DC and the power of our government tried to keep him away from it. And the people said, no, we want him there. We want him to do what he says he's done because he did it before. And so, you know, if you're...
Well, he's got a hot hand. His past makes you think that he's going to pull it off. You know, he's a good horse to bet on, whether you like him or not. You're kind of going, this guy's got the Midas touch, to bring a reference back. But, you know, the one thing I will tell you guys that I'm a little concerned about, and I'm not concerned because he's not the man for the job. I'm concerned because it's a big job, which is calming down the geopolitical heat that's right now. That's the only thing that, you know, that could disrupt our blue skies, is the fact that the world is angry. And there's a lot of chaos that's going on. And if Trump can pull off, I mean, he said, I think during his campaign, I'll have the war between Ukraine and Russia ended before I get into office. I'm not holding him at that. If he can even solve it in the first 6 months, I'll consider that a massive victory for the world, because then we can all get back to business. And when we all get back to business with somebody that knows how to prime the liquidity pump and manage that outflow, it's a magical. We can see like the Winklevoss, one of them said this morning, like an industrial revolution, a revolution of magnitude.
So let's talk a little short term. I want you to take a minute and, you know, everybody out there, just close your eyes and imagine the amount of Bitcoin ETF inflows over the next 6 weeks. Can you imagine what that's going to look like?
Yeah.
You know, we had 2 billion of IBIT traded in the first like 30 minutes of trading this morning. And that's more than on average the volume that gets traded on any given day.
Yeah.
It's going to be historic. And remember, people thought, you know, we were crazy for saying that it could be 5 to 10 billion in inflows in the first year. it's going to eclipse 20 to 25 billion. And then
So
next year it's going to do it again.
Andrew, huge object lesson that we can point out right here. We've been talking about all these derivative products that will be off of. So one of the things you can use to monitor what Andrew's talking about is, and me and Andrew were literally last night late sending prices back and forth to one another, is go look at the spread between the futures BTC price and the spot price. Yeah. And look at what happened last night when the world thought Trump was going to win. That spread widened and it got big. And so you're now seeing what we've been talking about, an unhinged price between some of the derivatives and the actual spot. If you're looking at what that means, it means that people who are able to play in those derivative markets have expertise in those markets. That's the markets they love to play in because it's like their sandbox, and they're betting that Bitcoin's going up. So it's another indicator to like kind of go, you know what, they may be wrong, but they're putting their money where their mouth is, which is a nice place to follow.
Yeah, exactly. And before we forget to talk about it here, let's go ahead and let's ruin everybody's day about Gensler. We've all been excited about Gensler finally getting removed and leaving and whatever. Trump's promised to remove him on the first day. Sadly, that's not exactly how it works, right? He's got to have, he's got to have that what do you call that? That proper kind of cause to do so. Things like he would have to prove like neglect.
No, it's not going to be hard. By the way, that's not going to be hard to manufacture.
I think they already have that file filled out and ready to.
There are judges that have excoriated the SEC under is leadership for capricious and whatever the other $5 word was, for them lying to the court about facts in a case and having that court case just shoved down their throat. Like there's not, there's a narrative, there's this, undertone narrative. Well, they can't just kick, Gensler out, dude. There's no way that he hangs out for another,
Listen, maybe they can't, quote, kick him off the island, but they sure as hell can shut the water supply off to the island. And I don't think Gary's going to live on that island for very long.
No.
People don't like to live on islands where all the liquidity has been shut off. So, when Elon meets with him and goes, "Oh, you're not willing to step down? Your budget's $5. Congratulations."
Have fun with that.
Spigot, turn it off.
and here's the other part of that. We all love Hester Pierce, right? We were all like, man, we'd love to see her. But she's already said, listen, I plan on, leaving the agency in 2025. So, I mean, what happens then? Where do we go from there? We can say, great, get rid of Gensler, but always in the back of my head, I've got that, that little saying, which is, it's always better the devil right?
Well, I don't agree in this instance at all. No way. I think I think he'll put somebody in his place that's like a Condoleezza Rice. I mean, somebody that we all know. Here's the thing you want in government agencies. You want to trust them first. That's the only thing that matters. And we don't have agencies that people trust, whether it's the 50% on one side or the 50% on the other. It's unacceptable that large of a portion of our population doesn't trust them. Do you see what I'm saying? So that has to be fixed, and that's going to be fixed. And the way that gets fixed is by putting people in charge of those agencies that people trust. And they trust because they stand on a moral high ground regardless of which party they serve. And I think there'll be a lot of bipartisan appointments, but more importantly, I think there's going to be a lot of appointments out of the public sector. I don't think he's going to appoint a bunch of government people.
Yeah.
And remember, again, when we're concerned about who the next SEC person is, the Winklevoss twins, David Bailey, Brian Armstrong, they're all going to be in the room when those conversations are being had. Like, there's no question about it. Like, oh, you want a pool of candidates? Here's 5 that we think makes sense for a pro-business, administration. And whoever that is, moving on. right?
I'm going to tell you something that I think Trump understands. And I'm almost positive he understands it because I know the people that have been in the room with him explaining it to him, and they do a really good job of explaining it. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist, okay? Limited supply of something, unlimited control of the supply of something else that has a conversion rate. What do? You print as much money as needed to control that market. And that's what I think is coming, because I don't think Trump is going to allow any country to take the leadership position on any technological front. And Bitcoin is one of those fronts. So it's not like he's choosing Bitcoin as the single thing that's going to be the shining light for our economy going forward. But I do think it's one of many that's in that basket, right? And he's going to open up, deregulate, put smart people in places that allow the friction to be removed. And the thing that I like is to move business. Everyone who's run a business understands how important it is to be able to be nimble, especially at the beginning. And if you don't have flexibility, you're dead in the water. And if you have friction, you're dead in the water. And so when governments, it's already hard enough to create a successful business in this world without the government, making it harder. And I think we're going to see so many pro-business legislation pieces come through. Like, I don't want to get my hopes up, but I heard during the campaign, I heard before the election, that he was going to get rid of payroll tax. Now, I want you to think about the implications of that. And here's the best part about it is, why do I think it's a high probability that he is? Because the money we're collecting in it is truly meaningless against our debt. He's a top line grower, not a bottom line pincher. Trump is. And so what do you do when you have too much debt? You outgrow it by producing more. You don't go, well, how much can I turn off the lights, kids? You don't get there that way,
maybe 50
right?
cents there, right?
yeah, exactly. And so I think he's going to really release a lot of the smartest minds in the industry to do what they do best, which is to innovate and do it at light speed. And in the event that it causes disruption, they work as allies together to create the structure instead of, working as adversaries against one another. And that's what we haven't seen yet.
So since you guys are bringing it up, taxes, agencies, we know Republicans were really unhappy with when they passed all that money there, the bill with all the money headed to the IRS to hire 80,000 extra agents and whatnot. Trump is president, Senate Republican, House Republican. What do you think happens here? Do you think
I want to hold him to his word?
All that back?
No, flat tax it. I think the way that he was talking about doing it is genius. Just put a 30% sales tax on everything, and then you control how much tax you pay. Not groceries. Not the main things in life, like gas and those types of things that you almost could remove the tax. But all luxury goods, all things that are of choice and of not need, that's the way you get the wealthy to, quote, pay their fair share. You put a cigarette tax on yachts, and that's great. If you want to buy a yacht, that's awesome, buy one. But it's going to cost you. And then those types of things, that type of a tax is so brainless. You don't have to hire CPAs. You don't have to know 50,000 pages of tax law. And it frees up everybody to just live their life and create businesses. That's what we do best as Americans.
Yeah, and I would definitely argue that the creation of business, the creation of income, of revenue, of sales, is definitely a much better way to fight all the spending that goes on, with government. Because let's face it, no matter who's in office, spending just keeps increasing. Year after year. So and the way they always approach it is, we're going to tax more, but that doesn't seem to work. So
a tax is a race to the bottom. It's a limit to that side. Taxing the people is like shorting a stock. you know what your potential upside is, because if the stock goes to zero, game over, you won. It's the most you could make on that stock in that position. Here's the difference though. When you're in a long position, it's unlimited upside. You can always outgrow your problem. And that's what America does. That's every system. That's why Amazon was able to stay in business, losing money every year for 15 years. You know, that's 101 economics. You know,
well, there just continues to be. You know, I'm scrolling through some stuff that I haven't seen, and there's more data that will come out of this. The level of the mandate that Trump has been given is another point to make. He's about as gifted a politician as the United States has ever seen in the history of the United States. To go from losing the election in 2020 to being basically
one of two people to ever do it.
Every organization that can indict him. Yada 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 yada. And then we have analysts and some data that says this. NBC, Donald Trump wins white suburban women by 4 points and white suburban men by 24 points.
Yeah.
Nobody predicted white suburban women would go for Trump by 4 points.
Yeah.
Nobody on the planet, not even the remote.
I would argue they did. They did, Andrew. And you know how you know they did? Because they put a commercial out that was having a wife basically giving the wink wink to her gal pal, going around her husband and trying to vote an opposite way without telling anybody. That tells you if money's being spent there, somebody knew, holy crap, we're losing the house. We're losing that demographic, and we've got to figure out some angle to try to sell them that they still can vote for Harris.
Yeah, meaning none of the pundits
agreed with you 100%. Yeah.
They said the exact opposite, right? That
they were afraid to say it, I bet, because they knew it was happening. Like, yeah, these people have got their thumb on the pulse. And they're deathly afraid of the truth getting let out, because if once the crack, opens, the chasm follows.
Yeah, so we're back at 74.7. Bitcoin's price again continues to tick up from the middle of the night, and Larry Fink still exists. Bitcoin ETF volumes are through the roof.
Yeah.
And we now have an infrastructure, given that the crypto super PAC was the biggest spending super PAC of the election cycle. I don't know if you guys know that. So now beholden to freedom money and folks that, want to open up markets associated with this stuff. Interesting, as it relates to, where do ETFs go from here? Trump wins, has a mandate, all that stuff. Didn't expect that yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Had a conversation with Matt Hogan about it. And, does a Solana ETF now, is it a part of the lexicon? Probably. Beyond Ethereum, Solana, and Bitcoin, are there going to be continued down market ETFs that get approved? Yes, probably. Will there be huge inflows into those assets? Probably not. But what will end up happening in that space is some of the biggest ETFs after Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana will be crypto ETFs that are a conglomerate of 15, cryptos. Or
mark my words, before any of those hit, Dogecoin will have one. Mark my words. I'm telling you. Did you see it yesterday? Because Elon's in that sphere. It's like it was up 40%, where everything else was up 7%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is hard to communicate just how it's just hard to communicate what a massive win this is. It's hard to communicate when you're winning the vote with women, so to speak. And by the way, he won margins and ended up being to the upside by a few percentage points with voters 18 to 30. Again, that is remarkable performance. The mandate that exists and the mandate associated with opening up our sphere, the world that we live in, and turning it into a part of the financial lexicon, is now complete and open roads. And so, what happens on a fast-tracked way? If you're at Citadel and BlackRock today and you have designs of a new tokenized, stock market exchange in Texas, that has now zoomed to the top of your priority list. You want to get that thing up and running in the next 18 months.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely.
One, I would argue that was as strong of an indicator that Trump was going to win as any, and as long as a precursor as any. You see what I'm saying? Like that isn't dreamed up overnight. That there's a lot of thought and work that has gone into that. Those people pride themselves. I'm not going to tell you who it is because he's a prominent businessman that's made billions of dollars. But I asked him one time, "Were you a Republican or are you a Democrat?" And you know what his answer to me was? "I give money to both of them because one of them's going to win."
Yeah.
That's the way they look at it. And Mr. Wonderful said so as much on Fox last night. He was like, I got to work with either one of them. So we got, and here I think the markets are responding to the fact that we all know Trump's about getting back to work. And America likes to get back to work. We like to make money, and it looks like everything's going to be pro that. And there's a great question here. Chris says, morning guys, do you think the Federal Reserve will try and drag their feet the next 60 days until Trump gets into office? One last wrench for Trump. I don't think so. Yeah. I think that Federal Reserve is kind of like that rich guy I was talking about, where they don't care. They want, as long as liquidity doesn't stop, and as long as they're not publicly getting called out by the administration, they work really well in the shadows, doing what they do best, which is trying to print as much money as we can get away with under the innovation that we can create and the military might that we control. Like, that's really what the game is. And I think that with Trump in office, the ceiling is much higher. We have a lot more potential. And so when you have a lot more potential, you can borrow on that potential by printing cash.
Yeah. And I think, nothing's changed for me in what I think is going on with the Fed. I think I think it's all but guaranteed 25 basis point rate cut after the 12,000 job print. We'll see what the revisal on it is next month. But yeah, we were potentially looking at a pause. Then we got that, last Friday. So, again, 25 basis point. They recognized that 50 basis point was a big jump there the first time. But, again, the reasoning for that being, well, if we had seen the employment data back there in the summer, we would have done 25 basis point then and then 25 basis point last time here. So, I mean, as long as you're doing 25 basis point, I think it calms the market back. If they were to do 50 basis point again, market freaks out and goes, what the hell's going on? What is the Fed so worried about? But yeah, I think the Fed just kind of does its thing now and it tries to ease into this. A lot of times people talk about, well, what if the Fed surprises? What if the Fed goes out there and they just do something completely out of left field? And the reality is the Fed doesn't want to do that. The Fed wants stability. They don't want you freaking out and giving these big jumps, buying and selling all this other crap, because it makes the job that they're trying to do that much more difficult. So, if anybody ever approaches you guys and says, hey, man, I think the Fed's going to just freak everybody out and do this, just kind of shake your head and walk away, because the Fed will not do that if they absolutely do not have to.
Well, let me put it economically for you. There's a pegged price in your head, and it's the inflation of the dollar to its value, right? You have a sense of what everything should be priced in. When you go to buy a car, if you went tomorrow and everything was priced in pesos and you were like, what, a car's $550,000? That doesn't make sense to me. So you already have this peg in your mind. Just like Tether is pegged to the US dollar and its job is to stay as tight to the US dollar as you can possibly get, the U.S. dollar's job is to stay pegged to your expectations as tight as it can possibly get. So to Chris's point, its whole existence depends upon that. Like, you have to trust it, which means stability has to be there.
Another point about the election that in all the conversation last night and the previous days before it and now today, I think that and you mentioned it, Chris, just a couple moments ago, the fact that we had an absolutely abysmal jobs report basically a week before the election probably pushed even another 1.5% of people into voting for Trump. Like, holy smokes, like we've got zero job growth. And oh, by the way, the only reason it was plus 12K is from government jobs, right?
Yeah.
That's all that it was. So that, I think, played a bigger factor than people think. The other thing is I just read a post and I think it's hilarious. And it says, Elon is such a dumbass. He spent $44 billion on Twitter and all he got was control of all 3 branches of the federal government.
see, everybody else is playing 3D chess and he's playing 6D chess. We'll double it there, right?
But why? Because he's focused on the fundamental things of human existence, like free speech. Yeah. And when you know that, I think the reason why Trump won in such convincing fashion is because he strikes a chord of authenticity that you don't see in politics. And it's hard to believe somebody that literally changes their accent when they're speaking to different people. That causes you pause.
What are you talking about, man?
No matter what people you come from, no matter what your background is, you're kind of going, I can't trust this person.
Yeah.
And even if you disagree with everything that Trump stands for, and let me tell you something, I don't know the guy. I don't know where he is on human development and his personal growth from an ego perspective. I can tell you, based upon his previous public past where he was on The Apprentice and all that stuff, didn't really care for the guy, real pompous, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you, I believe there's been change since he's taken this role on. And one thing that I can tell you that has kind of put me over the edge in the fact that I can trust him that his motives are pure and he's being authentic with me. And here's what it is. Him getting shot in the head. When somebody gets shot in the head, you can't fake motives after that. And I'm telling you, I'm a patriotic guy. I love America. I'd do anything to be the guy who, is the altruistic warrior. But if I'm Trump on that stage and I realize I've been shot in the ear and I dodged the bullet, I'm log rolling off that stage. I'm not standing up and shaking my fist at the shooter. You know what I mean? So the fact that he's convinced at such a core level that this is his destiny and that he wants to do right by America, I don't know how you can't get behind that and go, okay, well, let's talk about all the issues. What do we do here? What do we do? Let's try to problem solve. We got a lot of work to do because we're real messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, we were definitely we're definitely dealing with a lot. And I've said this before on a couple of different shows that have been over the last, month or two. But a lot of people don't like Trump. And that's your prerogative. It is what it is. Hopefully it's because you've got actual reasons and not just the narrative, formed by media. Because I can respect that. I can respect you not liking somebody. We all got friends that don't like our other friends, but that doesn't mean that we don't like them, But here's the thing. I think what we have to recognize about Trump is he is the result of what's been going on with the country and how crazy we've gotten and how out of whack we've gotten with what people really want. And I think that really gets proven here because, again, not only does he get the electoral votes, but he gets the popular vote as well. And it's pretty significant so far, it looks like, on that popular vote.
Here's another narrative that hasn't been brought up yet that I think, again, turbo boosters for Bitcoin in particular. So talking about tariffs, talking about sanctions of all the nation states that are going to be, to some degree, persona non grata with the United States. What do you think they're going to turn to try and deal with that reality in a very, very difficult time that they're going to have with the U.S. dollar? You think that they may be interested in adding Bitcoin to their proverbial balance sheet? Do you think that may be something that they turn to deal with issues like that? Yeah. Absolutely, they will. Yeah. Right. So even though it's not the most pure version of scale and upside to Bitcoin, it's still a reality. right? It's still a reality. So there are the amount of just conversations you can have about why Bitcoin goes higher, either about personality, either about architecture, either about governments being involved, whatever it happens to be. TradFi, TradFi being here in relative size has been a meaningful narrative for the past, let's call it, 16 to 18 months. By the way, that's about to be lessened a little bit because TradFi will have integrated Bitcoin in a meaningful way, and it will become what it becomes. There's another level of narratives. Another level of narratives is a national Bitcoin reserve. Another level of narratives are nation states all creating national Bitcoin reserves. That you see what I mean? There are continued levels which we're headed to. If you would have told, I've talked about on this show that I think, $1 million Bitcoin is stupid. I think that's absurd. I don't know that I'm not, may not be as absurd as I thought it was.
It's about time. It's just about timing, right? Again, everything is about timing. Do I think Bitcoin will eventually be 1 million? Yeah, I do. The question is, I think a lot of people talk about 1 million, and in the back of their mind, they're really saying God candle to 1 million.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's
or 1 million like in the next couple of years kind of thing.
Yeah.
15, 20 years or something.
Well, here's the thing that we do know. We know that Larry Fink wants to control as much of the physical as possible. And he's going to create as many vacuum cleaners to suck up that physical as humanly possible. And the longer it takes, the higher the price is going to have to go in that period in order to suck out more Bitcoin. So there is, a lot of evidence to kind of point to the fact that, to get the highest oranges off the tree, the price has to be up at the level of those oranges. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've got to get people off their wallets. And if I think 100,000 will be a big psychological level, but I do think what we psychologically have achieved in the last 24 hours, I think 100,000 is inevitable in my opinion at this point. I almost think we could see a God candle to 100 between now and the when we actually vote him in. And think about that. That's a 50% move. I mean, or 30% move, whatever it is. It's a massive jump.
And macro. And again, this to some degree, funnels down to Bitcoin and the building of the ecosystem. But we had one side of the aisle that was hell-bent on holding Elon Musk responsible, removing government contracts, shutting down SpaceX, holding X and Twitter to a new standard. Misinformation has to be dealt with. Elon Musk has to be silenced. And then another that said, this guy's a superstar. Builders are superstars. They should be held up and they should be assisted. That side of the ledger won, and the other side of the ledger got absolutely trounced, right? So again, we have a 2-year window before there's another election that could make some adjustment to how the pulleys and levers work in the regulatory and architectural framework in DC, or a 4-year period. And oh, by the way, let's not forget that JD Vance is a superstar, okay? That guy is a superstar that went and took on the MSNBCs and the CNN interviews for months and crushed every narrative that was put in front of him, and is, he's
the only person that I've ever seen that I understand why Trump trusts him to say the right thing. Because maybe he is sharp as a tack. You're not going to corner him with any. But I'm going to tell you this: you're not doing that with any of his kids either. I don't know if you've seen some of the interviews that his kids have done, even his daughters and daughter-in-laws. They I don't know if they all get together every night and say, "Okay, let's practice," but they are in one accord.
Yeah. And what do you guys think? I mean, so speaking of that, the one thing I've been thinking about is, okay, well, if Trump wins or, whatever, or even if he doesn't, it's his last time running, but especially if he does, I mean, do we look at this as a stepping stone for Vance? Do we see Vance running for
Yes.
president next time? And
Well, think
got
about
4
the
years to
bench.
even do
Yeah,
even better, right?
think about the bench that the Republicans have. You've got Vance, you've got Vivek. You still have DeSantis out there. The bench is so
Listen,
deep.
You've got Elon after the
Yeah.
next 4 years.
Yeah. So, and what does the bench for Democrats look like? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? So, nobody picked Shapiro at Pennsylvania to be the VP. Maybe that's their next, kind of guy. I live here in the bluegrass in Kentucky, and they think Andy Beshear here in Kentucky is a guy. But I mean, these people.
They're gonna have to be way, way further towards the center than they have been.
For sure.
Way.
Now here's the other thing though about elites and to some degree woke and liberals. They generally believe that course corrections that's not for us. We don't need to make a course correction. Everybody has to eventually get to where we are. So instead of a course correction, let's double down. By the way, I would be shocked if there is a massive course correction for the other side of the aisle over the next 6 months. I would just be surprised by it. Why? Didn't happen in 2016. Double down, double down, double down. Didn't happen in 2020. Double down, double down.
I'll make a prediction. If they don't, a third party will rise up to be the second majority. Because they're dead. Listen, there's no way here's the one thing I do know. People don't like being on losing teams. Mm-hmm. And can you imagine the crybabies today that are in, their basements just bawling their eyes out saying, oh God, this is the end of the world, right? They've got to come up with a narrative that makes them feel good again. And it's not going to be the same old, unless they want the same old result. Now, your argument, I guess, is that they're gluttons for that punishment. But I mean, at some point, they got to figure out that type of an extreme view, and especially talking at people from a political stage is very different than talking to people.
Yeah.
I have never met Trump, but you know what? I have a strong suspicion of that he's approachable enough to where I could get to meet him. I know people that know him, and he's not above us. If I had something that was really pressing, and I'm going to give you an example of this, and I don't think he would do this just for the votes. I really don't. But, Ross Ulrich.
Ulbricht, yeah. Ross Ulbricht, yeah.
Yeah. He made a promise to David and to a bunch of high-level guys that he was going to release him, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I have never heard Trump tell from a podium anyone that. So it couldn't have been motivated by political votes, or he'd be screaming to the Bitcoin community, I'm letting this guy out for day one.
I'm doing, yeah.
What he did do, though, is he let everyone in that room know, I hear you. I understand why you're grieved about this. And I'm going to do what's right. And I'm going to do what's just. And when you have a guy that's doing that instead of trying to win your votes, you start selling out to being a part of what his regime is, because you feel ownership in that regime. You feel like he's heard your real cry for justice. And I think that he's got a very unique gift in getting people to really feel valuable to him at a level that he doesn't have to. And it reminds me, and Chris, you might or might not, just being in Texas, have ever run into Coach Mac Brown. Mac Brown, I'm a freshman on the team. I've never stepped foot on the field. I have, there's no telling what my career is going to be at that point. I could have been the worst player to ever be at Texas at that point. Coach Brown flies up to my small town of Basalt, Colorado, when I'm a redshirt freshman. And he calls my dad out of the blue and says, "Hey, Don, this is Mac Brown. Can I take you to breakfast?" And it was so out of context for my dad. He literally had to sit there and go, Mac Brown, who's Mac Brown? And then it hit him. He was like, holy cow. Yeah, I would love to meet with you for breakfast. Mac took him to breakfast, sat there by himself with my dad for over an hour and 15 minutes, chewing the fat, talking about Texas, never talking about me. Never making it about Texas, about the exchange of value that was in our relationship. He was there to let my dad know, thank you for trusting your son with me, and I value you as a family. And that's the same type of magic that we expect from our politicians. And I think that's the type of magic that Trump's able to deliver. That's, I think, why he won, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And
you don't win plus 4% amongst suburban women if that somehow isn't resonating, if that isn't what they're sensing. Like there is no way. Everybody thought he would lose suburban women by 20 points, right? And he won them by 4 points. So that authenticity has to have been a real thing. It clearly was.
Yeah, and we get stories, the story about Ross Ulbricht there. There's been multiple stories like that people have put out over the last year or two to combat the media narrative, which is this guy's an ass, he's a fascist, he's a Nazi, it's all this other stupid stuff. And yet people are saying, but, and that's what I believed at first. And then this happened,
Well, no one who's worked for him says that.
So-and-so.
No one that's not political in nature that's worked for him has ever said anything like that. So, that tells you everything you kind of need to know. I'm just excited for the growth of America. It's hard to see policy. It's like watching a football game and knowing the refs are ruining the game. And you're just like, can you just let the guys play?
Yeah.
I feel like we're at a place where the refs are going, we're going to take a back seat to ruining the game. Y'all play the game and let's, see what you can come up with. How are you feeling about altcoins in the next 3 months now that we have BTC finally broke bearish market structure and which liquidity drives everything.
Yep.
So the question will be, what piece of the liquidity can you convince people to get? And so do I think altcoins will go up? I think certain ones will, and I think certain ones won't. Do I think XRP is going to go up?
Go ahead, say it here, man. We'll get you on video here. We'll get you recorded saying it. What's your thoughts?
Listen, it may just be from the sheer volume of liquidity that's being pumped in the market, but there will be definitely ones that are rocket ships. Just look at the board today. It's a smattering of overachievers, underachievers, and everything in between.
Yeah, and I think again, it's the same thing I've been talking about all year long. Matt Hogan and them over there, Bitwise, kind of took the same approach a little bit later after I started talking about it. Not that they listened to me, but I just mean they happened to say it as well.
Bitwise and Matt Hogan, they put out a post today, and people should go take a look at it and go to his Twitter page. It's a 3-minute conversation that is, we are entering the golden age of crypto. And these are prepared remarks if Trump were to win the election. So this is prescient. This is in the moment. This has happened. So we're entering a golden age, and how you should,
well, it's like all the T-shirts I've already printed that say Texas national champions. That's right. So a little bit ahead of the event, but we're ready for it.
Yeah. But when we look at that, again, as I was saying at the beginning of the year, it's been the thought that this is going to be different cycle than what we've had in the past, precisely because we have ETFs. And so we're going to see constant flows of Bitcoin through the ETFs rather than the old crypto bro thing, which was run Bitcoin up, cycle out into large caps, mid caps, small caps, micro caps, and the altcoins, and then back up to, Bitcoin again. You're going to have some people trying to do that, but at the end of the day, basically you're going to have altcoins are going to run, alongside Bitcoin, but it won't be the entire ecosphere of altcoins, right? It seems like it's working more in sectors, right? So you've got meme coins that have been doing well, but Yeah, basically speaking, it won't be like we've been used to, which, hey, I'm sorry if anybody listening, if it's your first time in crypto and you're looking for what we've always had, which again is Bitcoin tops out, pulls back, and then altcoins flush. I don't, I've been saying all year long, I don't think we get that, and we haven't gotten that yet. But we've had altcoins that have ran.
But you're also going to get a lot less risk in the market. You're going to get a more predictable rate of return over a longer period of time. The more money comes into it, the more stable the market is, the tighter the price action. That's all great stuff. Why? Because if you could get like predictable growth at the beginning is where fortunes are made. And so I would urge everyone, if you're somebody that's sitting at home and you're going, oh man, I've been thinking about buying Bitcoin, but I'm not buying it today because it's at its all-time high. I'm not telling you what to do. This is not financial advice. But I would go do some research in what happens when something reaches what they call price discovery, and what has happened with pretty much everything that has a market and liquidity and some sort of regulated supply, whether it's be technologically regulated or SEC regulated, whatever it is. But when there's a limited supply of something and you see this type of price movement, what I learned in school was that the price doesn't know how to value itself. And so it's going to do irrational things to find its value. And the only way what that translates into is if you think $350,000 is too much for a Bitcoin, well, guess what? The price is going to tell us. That's what that theory says. So if it gets to 350 and there's no more buyers, guess what? It'll crash off 350 and we'll be able to go, hey, see that? And that's what technical analysis is about. Finding liquidity pockets on the pricing table and going, I wonder if that liquidity still sits there, or I wonder if it's dried up, or I wonder if we have enough demand to plow through it on one direction or another. Go ahead.
Just one more time before we log off, because it's the best tweet I've seen in the last 24 hours. Elon is such a dumbass. He spent $44 billion on Twitter, and all he got was control of all three branches of the federal government. That's just epic. I mean, it's just absolutely epic. Oh man!
I think we're going to see a lot of positive changes for us. I know a lot of people, are scared, because of whatever, a lot of it's just basically what the media has told them. And if that's you, hey, listen, definitely understand, but try and take a deep breath and relax. I promise the end of the world is not coming because of this. And what's more likely to happen is we're probably going to, end up a lot better off, just based on the fact that we're, this new coming in is all about growing and building up rather than tearing down and making things difficult. And historically, that it usually turns out pretty well.
Well, and here's the thing. You've not heard us as, a community talk about we're real pro-Trump or we're real pro-Kamala. We've talked about, that somebody's going to win and there's going to be a reaction to that. Yeah. And the excitement that you see and hear in our voices today is because the market has responded and it likes what it sees. Yep. And that's good for everybody. So when money starts going, we like this, it's like you're in a sales meeting and the richest client you have goes, I want to buy double what you've got. Great. This is incredible. So as a nation, we should all be able to support the markets with our vote and, vote with your dollar essentially. And if you see the markets taking a hard stance with the reaction of the election, you probably should stop focusing on stuff you can't control.
Exactly.
Focus on things
this YouTube show today was the personification of the scene in the movie where everyone realizes Tommy just sold 300,000 brake pads. And in the back on TV, he's going,
that's perfect. Yeah, that is perfect. Just that guy, man. Oh, man.
the plant was going to shut down, but Tommy sold
He saved it all.
300,000 brake pads.
Oh my gosh. Hey, listen, man, I appreciate you guys showing up as always, helping to share your thoughts with everybody here. Man, listen, guys, this is what it is. It's all about the markets at the end of the day. We got our own personal opinions about Trump and Kamala and whatnot, but at the end of the day, like was just said there, what you're seeing in the show today is basically this reaction to how the market is reacting. Because the three of us, we're in here, especially when it comes to Bitcoin, to set up better lives for not just ourselves, but for our generations down the road. And, being able to see that the market's excited about what's going on here and the possibilities, allows us to then position ourselves better to get to that goal that we have. So hopefully
when you're sitting in a bad economy, it's like sitting at a bad poker table where everybody, they're all kind of your friends and nobody has deep pockets. And we just had somebody sit at the table and throw a wad of cash on the table and say, "Let's start playing, boys." And, that's what we all want. Bring some new liquidity into the
Bitcoin is hunting 75K again in a big way. It's
nice.
Well, 75 is a small psychological thing, and I think if it breaks it, you're there. You're at 100. I mean, you're basically, we're just waiting for it to happen. Basically,
you heard Tillman. You heard him say it here. If it doesn't happen, you know how to get a hold of him.
Listen, okay, in that case, it's not going to happen. I hate Bitcoin. It stinks.
At TexasOL61 on Twitter, folks. And Andrew, of course, is at AP_abacus, ABACUS. I am at TXWest Capital. So, let us know y'all are following and watching and what you think. If you've got questions about the show or things you'd like us to talk about concerning Bitcoin, potential regulation, all this kind of stuff that we talk about, let us know. Any of us or, under the video here.
We're getting Gary set up today. And so maybe we bring him on a week or two from now and have him talk about what his experience is with the new BTC algo that we've got.
Awesome, man. Yeah, you guys get I can get a hold of them and we'll get Gary.
Doesn't hurt that we're launching a Bitcoin algorithm at the highs with Gemini and the Winklevoss twins in 2 weeks. Probably not a bad gig for our company to be doing that right about now. It's pretty unique timing for us. It's pretty awesome.
If you guys, when you call them up and you ask about it, inquire about the Inks algo. That's what it is. Okay. My birthday. I'll let you guys know there. If you can pressure them enough, they're going to have to do it. It's the IA instead of the AI, right?
IA instead of the AI algo.
But yeah, guys, hey, check them out. Follow them at what's the website, guys?
TheArchPublic.com.
The Arch Public. Okay, and it's Try Arch Public on Twitter, right?
Correct.
All right, I got it there. And of course, guys, you can jump on here. We got there members.texaswestcapital.com. Jump on in there and join us. We'd love to have you there as well. All right, guys. Hey, listen, we're going to jump out of here. As always, fantastic time. I think we get a lot of good information. Hopefully, people think so. We definitely have a lot of laughs.
75.
Andrew, you need to create a meme right now for your Twitter. And it's the scene from Anchorman where they're singing "Sky Rockets in Flight." That's the only thing that I can think of right now.
Do it, and I'll share it, guys. Get it out there. I'll share it. All right, everybody. Hey, listen, y'all trade safe, have fun. Remember, the only thing you control is how much you lose, not just in trading, but in life, right? So always be perfecting that risk management. We appreciate you guys joining in as always. Have a great week. Trade safe. And we will see you. When will we see you? I guess we'll see you next Wednesday, right? And we'll see if we can get Gary on here, whether it be next Wednesday or the Wednesday after. I'll see if I can force him to open up some time to jump in here.
Sweet. Love it.
All
right. Take care, everybody.